You take about 20,000 breaths a day, but have you ever really stopped to think about the incredible journey each one of those takes? Well, today we're going to follow a single breath from the air all around you, deep into your body, and right into your bloodstream. Okay, so let's just dive right in by looking at the air that surrounds us. Because what we pull into our lungs, well, it's so much more than just oxygen. It's this complex, invisible mixture. In any given breath, you're not just getting that life-giving oxygen. Nope, you're also breathing in water vapor, gases like krypton, and even tiny, trace amounts of radioactive radon. And then you add in all the countless particles of dust and dirt, you've basically got a real cocktail. And that is precisely why your body needs such an amazing filtration system. So, that brings us to the very first stage of the journey, which starts in your upper airways. Think of your nose and your nasal cavity as a kind of high-tech security checkpoint. It's designed to clean, warm, and moisten the air before it's allowed to go any further. This isn't just a simple filter, it's a whole multi-layered defense system. First up, your nasal hairs act as a coarse filter, right? They stop the big stuff. Then, a sticky layer of mucus comes in and traps all the smaller particles. And finally, these microscopic hairs called cilia are constantly sweeping that dirty mucus away from your lungs. It's a fantastic process. You know, this entire cleaning system actually has a name. It's called mucociliary clearance. These cilia are always, and I mean always, pushing this mucus towards the back of your throat to the pharynx. From there, it just gets swallowed and completely neutralized by your stomach acid. It is an incredible, totally automatic process that protects your delicate lungs 24/7. But it's not just about cleaning the air. This system also acts like a personal climate control unit. It warms and humidifies that incoming air to the perfect temperature and moisture level so it doesn't shock the super sensitive lung tissue that's deeper inside your body. All right, so now that the air is filtered, it's warmed up, it's prepped, it travels down your windpipe, the trachea. And this is where it enters a vast, branching network of passages inside the lungs that we call the bronchial tree. The design here is just brilliant. The trachea is held open by these rings of cartilage, so it never collapses. Then it splits into two main branches called the bronchi, and from there, it just keeps branching out like a tree, creating this massive network to get air to every single corner of your lungs. And as these airways branch and get smaller, their structure actually changes. The larger bronchi, they're reinforced with that rigid cartilage. Think of them like the main highways. But the smaller branches, the bronchioles, they're surrounded by flexible, smooth muscle. They're more like the final side streets, and that muscle gives your body much finer control over where the air goes. Okay, we've followed our breath all the way to the end of the line. We've reached the final destination. These microscopic air sacs, where the vital exchange of gases, the real magic, actually happens. So the final stop for our breath is a cluster of tiny little air sacs called alveoli. And you have an absolutely staggering number of them. We're talking somewhere between 300 and 400 million of these things packed into your lungs. Each one is like a tiny balloon, just 50 micrometers across. And their walls are made of these cells called type 1 pneumocytes, which form a membrane so incredibly thin it's almost transparent. And that thinness, that is the absolute key to how they work, because it allows gases to pass through with remarkable ease. So how does this all work? Well, it all comes down to a really simple principle in physics: diffusion. Gases naturally move from an area where there's a lot of them to an area where there's not so much. The air you just breathed in has tons of oxygen, right? And the blood arriving at your lungs has tons of carbon dioxide. The whole system is perfectly set up for a swap. So oxygen naturally diffuses from the alveoli into your blood, where it's immediately grabbed by the iron in your red blood cells. And at the exact same moment, the carbon dioxide waste product diffuses out of the blood and into the alveoli, ready for you to breathe it out. These red blood cells are like tiny delivery trucks, picking up precious cargo and dropping off waste all in a fraction of a second. Okay, so we've seen the intricate journey of the air itself, but now let's pull back and look at the powerful machinery that makes this whole thing possible. Let's look at the engine room of breathing. You know, a common misconception is that lungs power themselves, but they actually don't have any muscles at all. Breathing is an active, coordinated effort that's powered by muscles in your neck, your chest, and your abdomen. But the undisputed star of the show is that large, dome-shaped muscle at the base of your chest, the diaphragm. Your rib cage has these two really clever ways it moves to make space for your lungs to fill up. The ribs swing up and out, kind of like the handle of a bucket. That increases the width of your chest. At the same time, your sternum moves up and forward, just like an old-fashioned water pump handle, and that increases the depth from front to back. We rely on those rib cage muscles for what we call chest breathing, and you'll notice that a lot more when you're exercising hard. But for just calm, efficient breathing, your body really prefers diaphragmatic breathing. That's when the diaphragm just contracts and lowers, creating this vacuum effect that gently pulls air right into the lungs. Now, to make sure this whole powerful mechanical process happens without any friction, your lungs are wrapped in this two-layered membrane called the pleura. You can think of it as a perfectly lubricated, frictionless coating that makes sure the lungs can slide smoothly against the chest wall with every single breath you take. So, from filtration and climate control down a vast bronchial tree to a microscopic gas exchange, all powered by this intricate muscular engine. This entire incredible journey happens with every single breath, thousands of times a day, without you ever having to think about it once. So the next time you take a breath, just remember that invisible miracle your body is performing for you.